Another thing that I wanted to talk about is using natural consequences in our discipline of our children. Um, and this can be a tricky one. I don't know if I mentioned before, but I am not a parenting expert, right? I am in the trenches with every other parent out there. And, so this is something that is difficult for me, but something that I know is important and that I am actively trying to be better at. And so natural consequences is, I guess, a way of letting our children's decisions and choices kind of play out naturally, right? And so when they make a choice that maybe upsets us or is something we didn't want them to do, or I don't know, might have a negative sort of outcome. Instead of rescuing our kids, instead of fixing the problem for them, we want to try to allow um, the natural consequences to play through. And so what this looks like is, our kid forgets their backpack that had their library books in it or something, and they needed that for school today. And so they know that the librarian is going to be upset because they were supposed to turn it in. It's at the end of the school year. We're trying to get everything checked back in, before kids leave for summer break. And it's like, oh, I could turn the car around right now and go back and get it, but what is that going to teach my child, right? Um, we want our kids to be responsible. We want our kids to take initiative and have kind of that inner drive. And so if we are constantly coming to our kids' rescue and fixing the problem so that they don't have to live through those consequences of their choices or their lack of initiative or responsibility, then we're kind of enabling that behavior, right? And we're kind of reinforcing that they don't have to be responsible because mom will just turn around and go back and get it. And so I guess that's kind of what I mean by natural consequences. The other, it gets a little more tricky when we're talking about when kids are maybe misbehaving. And, as a child being parented by my mother, I remember being grounded. That was the big thing. You're grounded. Not being able to go places or do things or talk on the phone, things like that were my consequences, I guess, the things that happened to me when I made bad decisions. And so, but the thing that we want to, I don't know, it's difficult because when the consequence doesn't match the decision that was made, it's hard for kids to learn from that and kind of connect the two. And so if we can find a way for a natural consequence to motivate them to change their behavior, that's going to be a lot more effective than saying you're grounded for a month. No Fortnite for you, right? When what they did had nothing to do with video games or whatever, right? So let's see, let's think of some other examples here. So if our children are fighting over the PlayStation, my kids love video games. I'm sure some of yours do too. They're fighting over who gets to play with the Switch. And they can't stop arguing. Then, I can go in and I can say, oh, let's see, what would I say? Oh, kiddos who argue don't get to play on the Nintendo Switch, right? Now, do I want to say that 10 times and repeat myself over and over and over? No, I want to reinforce and really follow through with that, okay? So kids don't learn when we remind them 10 times. What they learn is that, I can do this 10 more times before mom gets really upset, right? But what we really want to do is, again, I guess it kind of comes with that limit setting, right? Oh, kids who argue over the Nintendo Switch don't get to play Nintendo Switch. Kids who can share and work together and take turns get to play with the Nintendo Switch, right? So they start bickering and fighting and punching and whatever, screaming at each other. Oh, looks like we're all done using the Switch today because kiddos who fight and argue and yell at each other don't get to play the Switch. But mom, Oh, I'm sorry. The very moment that you choose to yell at each other and hit each other, you chose for the switch to get turned off, right? And so following through with that, and so they know, okay, ooh, the first time mom says something, we better knock it off, right? Because she's not going to give us a reminder, and then we're going to be mad. Um, so again, set that limit, communicate, and then follow through. Um, Trying to think of another one. So my son does taekwondo, right? And he has some things that he has to bring and take with him, especially with all the COVID safety stuff that's going on. They don't have their water fountains turned on anymore, so kids are supposed to bring their own water bottle and a bag to put their shoes and whatever else in that they don't need during class. And I tell you what, man, a lot of times my child has forgotten his water bottle and he's just now getting into sparring, which they sweat. It's a major workout to spar and, for 30 minutes. And so if you don't have a water bottle, that is tough, right? And my little heart just worries about, my kiddo overheating, or especially with wearing, they still wear masks in their classes and whatnot. So not having water, having to wear a mask, exerting lots of energy, breathing really hard with that mask on, and they do get mask breaks, so that's nice when they're taking their water breaks and whatever, they can take a mask break. But um, you know it's hard for me to not say, oh, let me just run to the store and get you a bottle of water, um, because and I've done that, guilty as charged, right? I have done that, and that has not been helpful, because I find myself frustrated that my kid continues to forget his water bottle. Well, gee, Sarah, I wonder why he keeps forgetting, because he hasn't had natural consequences of forgetting his water bottle at home. And he's 8, so he's perfectly capable of remembering, and what I might need to do is, maybe just make a list of, okay, we're leaving the house for Taekwondo. Do you have these things? And that can be helpful for some kids too, if they aren't quite remembering on their own without, that prompting. So just having a visual prompt could help, or a checklist, or whatever it may be. Maybe it's pictures of things. Um, but allowing him to be thirsty and tired. And, so, oh my gosh, next time I go to sparring class or next time I go to Taekwondo, you better believe I'm going to make sure I remember my water bottle, because I was miserable not having water, right? And so, that would be a natural consequence. Instead of getting frustrated with him and irritated and being like, oh, you forgot your water bottle again, you're not having video games for a week. You're done. He's like, well, how does that correlate? It doesn't really correlate. Like, yeah, that makes me mad that I don't get video games and I don't want to have my video games taken away, but it doesn't really help me remember that, I need to remember my water bottle next time. So it might work. I'm not saying it won't work, but what I'm saying is the natural consequences are going to have a bigger impact in kind of reinforcing, like as a negative reinforcer, um, to correct that behavior or help them, make things better in that area. Um, so trying to think of other scenarios. Um, Kiddos who don't do their chores, if you are a family that provides like an allowance, or you pay your kids for certain chores or whatever, and they don't do it, you don't get your chore money. You don't get your allowance. I have to go to work and I have to do my job. And then when I do my job, I get my paycheck. That is, positive reinforcement, right? I don't work for free. And so if you are not going to do your chores, I'm not just going to give you your money for that because you didn't earn it. And so the natural consequence is, sorry, maybe next week you'll do your chores so that you can have your allowance, because I can tell that you're upset or sad, mad, whatever, that mom's not giving you your allowance this week because you didn't do your chores, right? Or, mom had to do your chores, and so, you know, maybe you owe mom money. I don't know. That's maybe more down a love and logic sort of route, which, I have had some experience with as well. And some of it does kind of correlate and tie in, but yeah, just trying to find some more natural sort of consequences that tie into what has happened with the choice that they've made that is not optimal, that we want to discourage, but finding natural consequences to help them learn more quickly and have a bigger impact so that they don't continue to make those choices, when it comes to whatever it is that they're doing. So I encourage you, try to find natural consequences that tie in. And it's going to have a much bigger impact than if you just decide to ground them for 4 weeks, or take away their birthday party, or let them not go see grandma. Because sometimes in the moment we get so irritated, or we are upset ourselves, and we don't take a break to kind of think about what we're saying, and we kind of impulsively just, oh, you don't get a birthday party, you're not going to so and so's birthday party, or you're not going to get to go stay with your grandma. And then it's like, oh wait, who is this consequence for? Like, gosh, I could have used that break while kiddo was at grandma's house. Or we've been looking forward to this for 6 months. So we really want to find things that tie in a little bit better to what has actually happened, the choice that was made, to have that bigger impact, to prevent maybe that not the best choice that was made. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, I'm all ears. Let me know. We can discuss in more detail. Okay.